Hi, welcome to the Why People Buy podcast. I'm Seth Waite, the host of this podcast where we talk about motivation and buyer psychology in the food and beverage industry. And today we'd like to welcome our guest, William Grant, who's here to talk about his brand and experiences with customers in the food and beverage space. Welcome, William. Yeah. And William, if you had a friend in the food and beverage industry who was describing you or introducing you to someone, what would they say? How would they introduce you?
I would start with entrepreneur, product developer, and product development and innovation. It's kind of the three opening areas.
Yeah, those are pretty big ones in terms of what they are and how they all kind of work together. And from a brand standpoint, how has entrepreneurship and innovator, how have these things come together to create businesses in the food and beverage space?
While I can relate it to our company, we started in 2008 was because I got very interested in nutrition, the lack of nutrition in the food industry. And you're hearing things like ultra high processed foods now and all the negatives that they connotate. And that's basically bringing all the bad practices in the food industry and putting it under one major label. So it'd cover things like fats and salts and sugars and processing foods, so all the nutrition's destroyed. That's really how I found our niche and was able to resolve a number of design and structural problems with how to take fresh fruits and vegetables, stabilize the nutrition, turn them into a powder, and then concentrate them so they can be used in the food, beverage, and by the way, pet and supplement industry as well. So we cover four categories.
Really, that's great. So when you talk about kind of preserving the fruit and vegetable, the nutrients, what does that look like? What's that process?
We buy first grade fruits and vegetables, and we're principally using fruits and vegetables. They are all readily available. We source almost all that we can out of the United States. There's a little bit that we bring in depending upon the seasonality and if there's a particularly difficult nutrient that we need to add into a product. We we develop the products and we run them through I'm going to give you an oversimplified version. We run it through a um, uh, basically a grinder, and we extract the fruits and vegetables. In most cases, we use the skin and all. So we were picking up all the benefits of the skin, such as an apple, the skin of an apple, and so on. And we eventually, after we've processed it a few times, we put it into what I call our black box, which is where we have the technology to stabilize the nutrients and concentrate them into much smaller. Let me give you an example. For every 10 pounds of fruits or vegetables that we buy, we will be able to finish as finished product in a powder form 1 pound. So it's
Wow.
roughly a 10-to-1 ratio. And at that point, we're also able to control the nutrition, which is really a very important part of what we do because we can put the nutrition back into food and beverage and pet and so on through our process. So over, if typically you go in to buy anything in a store, especially if it's in the center aisle, the nutrition's long been destroyed.
Yeah.
And people are now looking and say they want to buy healthy, better for you products. And we fill that niche. And we're not doing it by eliminating things that should have never been in it in the first place, like too much sugar and salt and
Yeah.
so on. We actually are putting the nutrition back in, the vitamins principally, and minerals as well.
That's great. So when it comes out of this black box of sorts where all your technology is, it's coming out as a powder. Is that what that
Correct.
looks like? Okay.
Correct.
And then who's using that? Are you delivering that powder directly to consumers or is it going into other products?
Sorry, that's a good question. It's going business to business. So we're selling like food processors, beverage processors, pet food processors, and so on. And what we enable them to do is to make health claims that they could not have made otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So you're kind of enrichment's probably the wrong word, but you're improving their products by providing vitamins and minerals. Awesome. And are there any brands that are on shelves in grocery stores that you can talk about, or is most of that kind of non-disclosure agreements and NDAs?
It's mostly non-disclosure and
Yeah,
NDAs.
totally.
It's very interesting because companies that use our product don't want their competitors to know how they're doing what they're doing, and so they do not like us mentioning them. But you could go into any grocery store in the United States and be able to find many examples of our product in their finished packaged products.
Amazing. And I would imagine oftentimes then when you're seeing the, packaging and it's got a call out to vitamins or minerals, there's a good chance you guys have had an impact on that showing up as part of the process.
Yeah, if someone was familiar with our product and they looked at the back of a package and they looked at the ingredient deck, they could tell by the fruits and vegetables that are being listed.
Okay. And as you take all of these fresh fruits and vegetables, what kind of scale are we talking about? Like how many vegetables or and fruit usually per year are you guys working with?
How do you mean we're working
Just
with?
how much volume? Are we talking hundreds of thousands of pounds of fruits and vegetables?
Yep, in that area, yes.
Yeah, that's
We
great.
have one account, for example, that does just about 100,000 pounds a year with us now.
That's great. And from a fruit and vegetable standpoint, are they a pretty wide variety, or is this usually, you know, a lot of apples or a lot of, carrots or particular fruits?
We pick the fruit and or vegetable depending upon the nutrition that the particular customer wants to achieve. So we have stock blends, like we have a 12 nutrient blend, we have a 21 nutrient and mineral blend, and that is a really good one for companies to start with. But quite often they want to do their own blend with their own particular emphasis. And so we will choose fruits and vegetables that are have easy access, are well recognized. So things like apples, as you mentioned, raspberries, strawberries, spinach, broccoli, on the vegetable side. And from each of those, we pull specific nutrition out of each of them. And so you may see a list of 8, 10, even more fruits or vegetables listed on the ingredient deck.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, sounds like from a mission standpoint, you're doing a lot of good because nutrition is a pretty serious problem, I think, in today's food and beverage space. So that's awesome.
That really got busy with COVID, with everybody staying at home and being very nervous of COVID. Our business really got very busy. We had companies calling us up and saying, "We want your product," and they took it to market very, very quickly because of the demand coming from the consumer looking for better for you, healthier products. And we are, by the way, unique to the world. There's nobody else that does what we do. And we do sell in Southeast Asia, we do Canada, we do Europe, not all of Europe, but parts of Europe. We do a little bit in Japan, we do England, we do Taiwan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand. What we have traditionally done is if somebody contacts us and is interested, we'll work with them. But we're hardly scraping the surface in terms of the market and what we have the potential to do. So we look for the low hanging fruit. We look for the people that are interested in the easy opportunities.
That's awesome. So you've already got a global reach as part of the process, but to your point, you're just barely getting started. There's lots of opportunity. As people are reaching out, so you talked about COVID was kind of this accelerant. All of a sudden, people realized, holy cow, our consumers are very interested in better nutrition. we want to increase that in our products. What's it been like post COVID? Are you kind of seeing that customers are looking for the same health benefits? Has it like adjusted or changed? What does that look like?
It has not slowed down. The consumer is still very interested. If you hang around a grocery store for a while and you watch people look at packaging and ingredients and nutrients, it's a very, very strong trend with no sign of letting up. Nor, by the way, should it ever let up. The nutrition is, even in the United States, with us being a wealthy country and so on, is very hit and miss with whether people are getting sufficient nutrients on a daily basis. So, and the other thing that's really quite terrifying is 65% of our youth are obtaining their food from ultra processed food.
Wow.
So they're getting no value, no nutritional value at all. And there are, I mean, I could go
Going
on for an,
backwards is what it
yeah,
sounds like.
yeah, and I could go on for an hour and explain why it's awful and what it's doing to the body and all the issues that go there. And part of it is the consumer has been listening to a lot of large CPG companies. I'm going to pick on them as an example. And they will only tell part of the story. They don't give the consumer the whole story. You know, they're saying, "Oh, look at us. We've reduced salt by 10%. We've reduced sugar by 10%." Well, they're the ones that put it in the product in the first place and have done nothing to change it until the consumer started insisting on better quality and more nutritious products.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're trying to get essentially they're trying to get some thank yous from the consumers for removing things that they added themselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when your product goes into another product, as part of that, do they have to reformulate anything for flavor or taste? Is that a pretty simple process? Is that a lot of partnership? What does that look like?
You're on your A game. Good question. Typically, our product I'm going to give you a hard statistic. To add 50% daily value into a product, it would take 5 milligrams for 50% daily value. And that's as established by the USDA. So that's about, right at the end of your fingertip. And that would be one serving of our product. So if it's going into, let's say pasta or a granola bar or any one of 100 different products, the nutrition stays, but there's no indication of any impact on taste, flavor, palate feel. All that we're doing is we're putting the nutrition back in that they've already destroyed through modern day processing.
Yeah. So you've got a better product and it's essentially invisible other than the positive impacts to the customer who's eating it.
Correct. And that is confirmed by we send product out for third party analysis. And so let's say it's the 12 nutrient blend, which is covering vitamins like A, C, D, E, K, and 7 of the Bs. We measure each of those to make sure they're achieving our minimums that we've set, that every blend has to have a certain amount, and we achieve that. And then once we've done that and we've done our microbials, we ship it out to the customers.
That's great. And then they're just essentially making sure that there's enough of your product in each of the serving sizes, essentially, so that they're hitting those benchmarks that they've set.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Awesome. So as you think about and as you like work with clients, I would imagine that they have very specific goals oftentimes for all the vitamins that they're trying to hit. And are those goals often driven by, you think, the food scientists and like the product team, or are consumers in the market asking for some of those things? Where does that drive usually come from? Is it led by the person creating the product, or is it often driven by the person in the shopping cart, walking through the stores?
Coming to us, it would come through the food scientist and product development. And they're all pretty wise, and they know what the consumer's looking for. They may not know specifically, but they can quickly do their homework and then come back and say, okay, we now want to add more of a particular nutrition or put a vitamin in it that was not there before. To use another example with an analogy, what we put in the pet industry is it's the same kind of process, but the nutrients are really focused on animals, principally dogs. So it would be completely, not completely, but would be other minerals and vitamins and levels that we would be too high if they were using the human side of it. So it's developed specifically for different markets, different consumers, and different processors.
Awesome. So everything's custom essentially for that process. When you guys do pet food, we're usually talking human, but like, is that gently cooked, kind of, nearly human grade, like sous vide pet food? Is it kibble? Where does that usually show up? It could be, is it yes to all of them?
Yes to all of them.
Awesome. Awesome.
I will give you a disturbing comment
Okay.
because on the food side, it's really quite interesting. On the consumer side and the food processors side, it's all about market share, and their focus is on market share. And we are a vehicle to improve market share, which is a little bit scary because if cardboard worked, they'd sell that.
To improve market share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's quite different when you go into the pet industry. In the pet industry, it's all about the health and welfare of the animal. So they're much more conscious of what's going in and what the impact will be, and and they look at our product as a game changer in the pet industry.
Yeah. That is a scary fact. When you think about that, I mean, I can understand that. I think oftentimes, right, in the food industry, because we have the ability to hopefully do our homework and research, we're letting people make their own decisions about their health. We did a research project last year when there was a boycott against one of the major CPG brands for their use of synthetic dyes. And it was really interesting. We went on and actually surveyed people that were eating those products. They were consuming those as cereal every day. And we then educated them on synthetic dyes and some of the current things that are being talked about in that space. And just, here's what's going on. And then asked the question at the very end, would you continue to eat this product, to choose it on the shelf? And only about 20% of the people said that they would stop. So what was really interesting in the process was just something that we see in research a lot, which is, to your point, nutrition isn't always this leading fact, and it's something that's got to change in the food industry. And it probably starts with consumers and also all the CPG brands that are out there building products.
120% correct. It's really, it's either going to have to be done individually by each of the food processors and beverage companies, or, the government needs to come in. And I'm not into big government, but they need to come in and start to mandate saying, here's the changes that you need to make. And whether that'll happen or not, I have no idea. A couple of terms. There's a term called oxidative stress. Basically, it's inflammation in the body. Inflammation is a word a lot of consumers are hearing now, knowing that it is not a particularly good thing to happen. Oxidative stress is a little bit more involved, and it's easy to explain, but it gets a little bit technical. By controlling oxidative stress and what's called free radicals, it has a major impact on the body. And if people do not handle it properly, they end up with chronic health issues later in life. So it's something that people really need to be aware of. And that by the way is probably another hour on its own, explaining that. And the consumer has never been given the a background and the tools to help them make healthy decisions. They're getting it off the front of the box. They're getting it off of ads and so on. My absolute pet favorite here of all, if I'm allowed to mention a brand, is Pop Tarts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very familiar.
What are these people thinking with Pop Tarts? They should be taken off the market. You can't even make one comment that's positive on it. You know,
Yeah.
they're using lousy flour, they're using icing, they're using flavoring. I
You're
mean,
saying there's not real fruit in those things?
I can't say that. I'm not sure there is or there isn't, but it is. It's an
It's the champion of ultra processed.
Yeah, and cereals. Between those two, you know, kids are going to school eating a Pop Tart. Kids are going to school having after having a bowl of cereal. They're getting no advantage for going to class and trying to learn. They have done studies that show that kids that have a good nutritional breakfast and going to school and writing tests perform better than the kids that have the ultra processed breakfast. They've also done studies of the military. Soldiers out in the field perform better than soldiers that have had a poor breakfast. So, and all that information is readily available and disturbing.
Yeah, it is. Well, you get that balance of the manufacturers have to care. And for them, often, I think the question is, am I going to get more market share by caring? And the consumers have to be educated enough to kind of demand those changes in the process. Do you see, if in your crystal ball, as you're kind of looking to the future, do you think that consumers are going to continue to get more educated and demand more of these products? Is that the direction you think you see things going?
I think it is, but it's going to be slow unless somebody jumps in that's a lot bigger than us into like a CPG company and says we're going to actually work on improving people's health and not telling them it's better when it really isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll require an internal change, probably, is what it sounds like.
And a major one, major change. There is that whole process is slow. We've been doing blogs now for about 3 4 years, and part of our philosophy is to poke the stick at the industries,
Yeah.
kind of take people to task, and um, individuals coming to us almost every day of the week, year round, asking if they can do an article
That's
on,
cool.
and they have a criteria on what has to be approved. But if you go on to our website, which is NutriFusion.com, you will see a very large blog section where we publish, and we will do two, three, four publications a week, depending upon what's coming in and what the topic is. And you mentioned dye in particular.
Yeah.
The big topic was red dye. We published an article on red dye about 2 3 months ago. And even today, it is our most read blog.
Yeah.
So
Everybody coming to check it out and trying to figure out I'm hearing all these things. What's real? How do I know what matters? Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, and we try to be very black and white. We don't hedge our comments. We'll like Pop Tarts. You know, I just shake my head. I'll never get over that one. And the worst part was if you saw the college championship games last year, Pop Tart was promoting a bowl, and they had these actors in Pop
Matter.
Tart outfits running around. I mean, what a message to send, and also shame on the NCAA for allowing that to be added in when they're trying to help diets and people's health and welfare.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild. We could have a whole series, I think, just on how food brands are allowed to market to kids and people like that as well. Cause I think that's crazy to your point as part of it. So this is kind of a customer conversation. How do you, how do you weigh the balance of being very direct about the industry's need to change, right? Like to your point, we're black and white, we're not pulling any punches, and yet your clients are CPG companies in the process. How do you guys think about your position, your responsibility, your mission?
Um,
Maybe that's loaded.
trying to think how best to answer that. About
'Cause it's got to be a
seven
delicate dance, right?
Well, yeah, but not really, because if you talk to some of these R&D people and product developers, they're working for large CPG companies, and you start to get to know them and you have chats, and they know exactly what they're selling and they don't necessarily like it. So I had one in the beverage business, and I'm going to say this goes back 6, 7 years ago, did an article and I sent a copy of it to him. And it was basically the huge misrepresentations from this particular company. And he sent me a note back, and I remember the words exactly. He said, "Ouch, you could be describing us." And he was the senior R&D person in this multi-billion-dollar company. So
Yeah.
they know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so from a customer perspective, are the reason why they're using these dyes or ingredients that are bad, sometimes it's just right, it's that they're overusing sugars and all these other things. Is it a cost standpoint? Like, is this because they're trying to lower the cost of ingredients, or is it because these sell better? What do you think some of the drivers are behind those?
Cost is one, but they also want to condition you to like their food, which is typically enhanced through sugars and salts. The sugar that we eat in the United States is on whether you're having a croissant or granola bar or whatever, is much higher than it is in Europe. They both taste good, but what they're competing against is all the other companies that are putting sugar in it. And so they have to compete. They want to make the product as delicious and repeatable as they can.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of how do we make sure that if somebody tries our product, they come back for it and they're leveraging the natural addiction of sugars and salt as part of the process. Yeah, that's terrible.
Think of the ad that was out a number of years ago now when the guy puts his bud put a chip in his mouth and the guy says, "Bet you can't eat one,"
Yeah.
and he eats the
Yeah.
whole bag.
That's the whole point that they're pushing on is that kind of concept of you're going to come back. We talk a lot about why people buy and in the process, we kind of always go back to this Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? So there's this kind of pyramid of reasons why people do things, why they need those. And in the food business, really you have these basic functional needs at the very bottom and taste is one and texture, smell, satiation, right? Like, is this actually satisfying? And so it's really interesting because a lot of times we think about these motivations as positive motivations. But to your point, right, sometimes there's negative motivations as well, which is this kind of like addiction, and that need to buy this product to satiate the fact that it's got a lot of sugar and we're kind of craving that particular thing. So that's wild.
And it's all market share. The magic is to put health and nutrition back in. The, the typical American, this statistic's older, but I don't believe it's changed at all. The typical American gets sufficient fruit, 7% of a typical day, and vegetables, I think it was 6 or 5% on a typical day. So we're not even coming close to hitting the basic health standards. And I had went over to a good friend's place for dinner one night, and there's other people there, and they start, what are you up to? And I told them what we do, and then everybody gets interested in health and wealth and nutrition, and the topic gets monopolized by it. So this friend said, well, I get my nutrition every day, and I said, oh yeah, how are you doing that? He said, I drink my V8 tomato juice every day. So I said, okay. Do you,
Just thinking,
do you,
check.
yeah, do you have any in your fridge? Yeah. So I got up, got it, and went back. And it's like I can't remember the exact numbers. There was zero nutritional value, and salt was like 37%. So so I showed it to him and I said, show me where the nutrition is. And he goes,
I was kidding.
don't tell me that. You've destroyed the one thing I thought was helping.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And really it's just like sodium in a can or,
Yeah.
it's part of the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, I just think about how often we look at the ingredient list and we don't even know what that stuff is, as part of the process. So
And that's actually a good point. And kind of the rule of thumb is if you can't pronounce it, don't buy it.
Yeah, that's it's a great way to do it. So I mean, you're helping brands be better. You're helping good brands get even greater. Like as you think about if I was a brand new CPG company and I was in that formulation process or thinking about my customers, what kind of advice would you have when it comes to nutrition and foods, maybe how to start and what I could be thinking about?
We make it easy for them.
Yeah.
So we are an easy starting point. We do not require them to make any large purchases. So when they're starting, we will typically ship in a 125-gram sample at our cost, and we FedEx it out so they can start to look at it and figure out what they need. And then if the relationship proceeds, we will provide them with any quantity that they want, but our goal is always to get them into a full case. Full case is 50 pounds. Now, 50 pounds, remember, when you're dealing with typical serving would be, say, 100 milligrams. That is a huge, huge amount of product that they've got to use. So that's why we work with them to help them get organized and grow. We ask them to let us look at their claims and packaging for two reasons. One, to make sure they're being maximized, and two, that they're not going offside and making claims that we would not want to see or support. And then we always tell them run it by regulatory for final approval.
Yeah, that is a good tip on the back end. I've watched a lot of people skip that step and then have a really expensive process of pulling things back after they've already gone out.
We had that happen last Friday. They made changes without notifying anybody. It was done on probably cost basis, and it's caused them no end of problems. And we're trying to help them as best we can.
Yeah. So as you think about customers, if you had one tip, idea, method for how to be successful with customers, whether that's your customer as a CPG or the customer pushing that shopping cart in the grocery, if you could just share one thing and we'll kind of wrap up with that, what would it be?
I would say your customer is always number one, whether it's the consumer, if you're a CPG company, or a CPG company buying from people like us. We want them to be very well taken care of.
That's awesome. Yep, totally aligned with that. Getting to know them and keeping them a number one is awesome. So, thank you so much for coming on today, William. We will have your website with a link to the blog in the show notes, so everybody listening can check that out and dig in, get to know the material there as well as your brand, and just appreciate your leadership on the mission of trying to help us be healthier in the
Yeah,
food and beverage space.
and I appreciate you for doing exactly what you're doing. So keep it up too.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you, William.
all the
Appreciate
best.
it.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.